Welcome to my studio and my garage where we're going to look at how to sculpt foam today. So I have a few materials out on this table in front of me, which I'll show you in a second. And I'll describe what we need to do this project. And you don't really need very much. So I'll start with the essential materials and then I'll move forward to some potential tools that we could be using, tools and materials. So the first thing that you need is foam, obviously. And oh my gosh, my partner left me a Reese's underneath my foam. He always does things like that. Oh God, I'm so lucky. Cool. Okay, so I have blocks of foam here, and they ran out of the squares, so I just spent an extra $1 and got one of these round ones too. So this is the total amount of foam that I'm going to be working with, and I want to sculpt my head. I'm just going to sculpt my head for practice, and it'll be a bit maybe larger than my actual head. I'm using Styrofoam or polystyrene, I think. And we're doing this because it's lightweight, so you can make really big things and they don't have to be super heavy when you move them around. You can build modularly with this, meaning you could build it to where you could like take it apart and put it back together someplace. It's the most inexpensive foam that you're probably going to find. And the main reason too is that it's like super easy to sculpt with. So it's beginner friendly. You don't need a whole lot of fancy materials to get the job done. The only problem with Styrofoam is that you want to go bigger rather than smaller, because once you start sculpting in small little details, you'll notice that these little pieces of grainy like foam bits, the pixel of it, if you think digitally, like the pixel is big, so you can't really get like high definition, if that makes sense. So it'll like start to break apart if you get really small. With that said, you can use other types of foam for like smaller detailed work. You can also buy large sheets of flat sort of foam at Lowe's or Home Depot. And then the next thing that we need is a serrated knife. So don't do that, by the way. Be careful with your tools. You probably have a steak knife or something in your kitchen, and the serrated part, if you see here, this has got like those, curves on them. It's not like totally straight, so that just makes it easier to like carve into the foam. So you need that. You need foam, you need a knife. It's nice to have if you have a box cutter, but it's not a necessity. We need sandpaper to sand things down after we get done cutting. So I have different levels of grit sandpaper. This one's 60, and this one here is 150. Okay, and last, you'll need a hot glue gun to all of these different parts that we have. We're gonna glue them together, and then if something falls off, you can always hot glue it back on. Don't forget to have your hot glue sticks. And then another thing that you can use for cutting is a hot wire, which you can easily get at like Hobby Lobby or anywhere. And you just plug it in, it makes the wire really hot, and then you can carve through the foam like butter. If you're in my class, do not use this at the school. Wear a proper mask if you're gonna use a hot wire. If you go real big, like you start to build something massive, and you need something larger than this tiny little knife that can only do tiny little pieces, you may want to switch to a handsaw that can cut larger pieces at one time. Or I used a reciprocating saw a lot when sculpting foam. Learning about the reciprocating saw really saved my life because it's like a power tool. It cuts really fast. And for me, I was using stronger foam, so trying to cut it with this was not doing the job. So I had to switch to this. And this has a blade that like inserts into this area. So this is what it looks like. It looks like a swordfish or something, and it goes really fast, and you can just like chop, go crazy with it. It's fun. And then they probably have this in the shop if you want to use it. You have to learn how first and get permission with Jason. Okay, let's look at a couple other materials that we could potentially use. So maybe you want to use some foam clay, which is, I have this foam clay here. It's White Magic air dry moldable cosplay foam. And you can just, it's sort of like clay, so you can like attach like pieces onto the styrofoam structure. So when you finish it, you're gonna have this ugly styrofoam look still, you know. And you can paper mache it. I've never used this stuff, but it's paper clay, and it looks really easy. It looks like similar to the foam clay, but paper. And what I'm gonna do, I think, is probably use this stuff to coat this so that I can sand it down and paint it and have like a smooth surface instead of a grainy surface. So I'm gonna give this a go. We're gonna see what happens. And lastly, I found this smooth finish foam coating. And this is was nice because it like fills in cracks and stuff. So there might be some scenario with which this helps you out. Let's get started. Okay, first let's cut some simple shapes, and then we'll get into the sculpting of the head. So make sure you have a cutting mat or a piece of cardboard underneath the foam that you're going to be cutting into. And this is just a scrap piece that I have that I painted on already. Draw in maybe a triangular shape that I want to cut out of this. Get my serrated knife and just, you know, you don't have to try very hard, but you just sort of saw into it like that. And also, you don't have to saw like all the way through. You can just like create a superficial cut. Sawing like halfway through, and then it should be pretty easy to just like break right off. And then you could perfect the edge later if you want. And look, actually, I could make like a bunch of superficial cuts and actually not cut the whole thing, and maybe make some scenario with which I could open and close it, or, you know, sort of think of like an accordion sort of sculpture where it like folds or bends. There's a lot you can do here. So I'm just going to break that off. I have the best setup for recording right now, but all right, so this one I cut all the way through and it's pretty straight. So it looks pretty good. So I can perfect the other angle if I want with the knife. And once you start getting the foam everywhere, just make sure you wear a mask. So yeah, I've got a triangle, and I could make like a bunch of different triangles, and I could layer them up or like attach them to a piece of wood or something and have them all like spiking out. Or, you know, you could do a lot with simple shapes. You don't have to be like an excellent sculptor or anything. Sandpaper. And instead of that ugly edge, you have a nice, more finished, clean edge. Like spruce up some of the imperfections like here. maybe actually I want to angle, like create a beveled edge here. Beveled edge, not bad. And then just clean it up. Sort of getting more interesting shadows happening. And that could look cool with a projection mapping if you have multiples of these on a surface. Simple shapes are super easy, so that's all I'll do with that right now. But let's get into the more complex shapes. So I think if you can sculpt a face, you can sculpt anything. So here we go. All right, so this is actually extra, so I'll take this off. Step one is to just glue these 3 pieces together with the hot glue. So I'm just gonna take my hot glue gun and glue it all over and attach it. And I'll have like an extra glue stick for when the glue runs out here, just to push the stick in here like that. So, and you don't have a whole lot of time to work with this, so just go fast. Cool, so as long as you don't go like yanking on it, then it should be good. If you're more worried about it like falling apart at a later time because you're not gonna like coat it, then you may want to use a different type of glue. I'm not sure what type of glue is best here, so you'll have to look that one up. Next up, we're gonna draw the side profile and the front profile, and I printed out these portraits of myself, and normally I just use my phone, but I'm using my phone to record. So it's image of anguish, which is what I'm sometimes drawn to with art, so I like to depict that. I think it's beautiful. And then I got a side profile of the same facial expression, and I got an angled view. So let's see if I can work with these and make something happen. So looking at the front view first, I'll just draw it on to my foam. So I want to like sort of over exaggerate some features. He's looking very masculine right now, but we've got a side portrait and we've got a front sketch, right? Oh, her face, or her face is coming off. So now I can start to sort of sculpt away the parts that I maybe won't use and like sculpt into it as I go. So with the knife here, I'll start with the front since it took me longer, and I'll just sculpt away the pieces that I don't want by like taking my serrated knife and, you know, like cutting it like that, away from your fingers. Might have to come back and redo the side view. And also you can start to think of like a head and its basic components. So I need like a round shape with maybe like a neck on it. So we'll see. And remember, you can always take away foam, but it's harder to put it back. So let's cut off as little as you think you need. I just did a circle on the top, and I'm cutting away these parts with the saw. Make sure you have a cutting mat if you need one at the school. I've cut away a lot of my drawing already, but as you go, like I know this is going to be the front of my head, right? So like now I have to sculpt into this area. So I'm basically just like constantly looking at my reference photos to see like the angle of my forehead right here. Probably turn it this way. So the nose is right there, and this is where it's gonna start to like dip in a little bit, not too much. All right, so I'm gonna switch back to the knife. And make sure you keep your scraps just in case. I'm basically like looking at this block of foam, and with my imagination I am envisioning what it will be. I don't know how to teach this sort of thing, but that's just like rolling through my mind here. Like I can see the jawline here, I can see the nose, and I'm just like letting the face reveal itself, if that makes sense. And I'm not going for perfection or anything like that. I'm just like sort of like chipping away at it and seeing what form takes place. This is where I think the ear is gonna go. I think the ear is somewhere like, you can't, toward the back maybe, or like in the center of the head. But my ear looks like it's going like the lobe is the bottom of my nose, and the top of the ear is like the top, like maybe my eyebrow or my eye area. So I'm looking at where my nose is gonna be and where the eye, and I'm sort of more or less like doing a square around that region, and that's what I won't cut out right there. It's getting a little foamy over here, so I'm gonna put on a mask.
This is what's so cool about styrofoam. Like, you can just like mess with it with your hands. Sometimes whenever you're doing like you're starting to get into the details, you might want to be like a little bit slower and use less pressure. Like have more finesse so you don't break things. But like in the beginning, when you're just getting rid of material, you want to be sort of aggressive with it. So you have to change your pressure and change your approach throughout the process. And I'm left-handed, so I totally set this up the wrong way, so sorry about that if you can't see some of the stuff.
Okay, there's foam flying everywhere. So that was session 1, and I might do like probably 3 sessions. This is just a demo for y'all anyway, but I want it to look good. So right now I look somewhat like a caveman, but there is a face here, so that's pretty good. And you can sort of see like the forehead, which the brow is a little bit manly, but the nose looks pretty good. And then these weird like face sort of like tearing off elements look kind of nice, and I'll probably extend it to the back as well. The eyebrows look pretty good, I think. And I'm planning on using the clay foam to make it more detailed and stuff. However, if you want to do something like more geometric and you're working on something that doesn't require like all of these folds of the skin, you know, it's not as big of a deal for you. But yeah, so we'll come back and sculpt it again tomorrow. Oh, and do not forget to clean up your mess. Clean up your mess. So you may want to wear like extra clothes to get foamy, and then like have a bag and put your extra clothes, like your foamy clothes, in the bag. But like I've got foam everywhere, so I'm gonna use a shop vacuum, and there's a vacuum in the shop for y'all to use, but I may end up bringing my shop vac, we'll see. But pick up everything, we don't leave anything. All right, let's make this look a little less caveman-y.
So right here, I'm just like looking at this ear on this side and taking my knife and just like sort of eyeballing it basically.
I've done a lot with this like subtractive process of sculpting the foam, and I feel comfortable with continuing with an additive process and using foam clay. If you don't have foam clay and you just want to use styrofoam, you can add pieces of styrofoam if you need more, like glue them on, but I'll just do the foam clay. And you can get a lot of detail in, like you can get more detail than this with just sculpting the foam, but I want to play with the clay, so that's what I'm doing. So with the clay, all I have is like that clay that I showed you earlier. I've got some of my ceramic tools, the tools like this at like any art supply shop, and I have a bottle full of water because you can spray the styrofoam to make the clay adhere better. So with this stuff, you just want to make sure you close it up after you pull some clay out. So you see, I just grabbed clay, it's very sticky. I'm gonna grab the this guy and close it back on. And it's like easy to sort of like get off of your hands if you just roll it around and do your hands like this. And you can like dab the wet clay off of your hands too. You can also like wait for it to get a little bit drier, like by leaving it out for a second. But it's just like however you feel like working. So there are many things you can do. You can like roll it in a ball like this, you know. You can roll it like, if you have a ball, you can take it like this and maybe on a surface that is not too sticky. You start from the middle, so you can use your palm and like palm roll it like that. My surface is like really wet, so that's not the best. But I also have cornstarch that I use on my fingertips if I need to, if it's sticking too much. And you can just like palm roll it into a more elongated shape, and then you can take your fingers and start from the middle and expand outward, so you go like this to make it longer. And I don't want to leave it down too long because it's wet here, but basically you can do that. I'm really not going to be too precious with this because I kind of like things that are messy, but there's the start of my eye right there. Just making a little cylinder and applying it to the bottom area of my eye. Then you can grab your tools and play with the foam a bit. So that's where I want my crease to be, and I'll just draw in a new crease. You like drag it down, so like once you apply it, you can like take your thumb and just drag down and blend it into the rest of the foam. And if your foam dries too quickly, you can always re-wet it with that spray, so you can manipulate it further. So I'm just leaving a ball right here to work with. Okay, let's make 2 eyebrow areas. So I've got one ball here, and I'm just gonna make it into a longer sort of like that. And then I want her to look sort of like in pain, so I think it's gonna be like this shape. Oops. And it's not sticking because I didn't make it wet, so. My hands are a little too sticky, which is where that cornstarch starts to play a role. And if you like spray the clay foam and you like get it like really wet and your fingers are wet, you can sort of rub it out to make it smooth. Very, very similar to clay. And in fact, you could put air dry clay on this, but I want everything for me. I just want it to be foam, so that's why I'm using this. Clay tends to be pretty heavy, and it is cracks pretty easily. I'm using a plexiglass sheet to just hold my foam for right now. I don't know, probably use anything. Another thing that using this clay is gonna do is it's going to allow me to, you know, if I use it enough, I won't have this ugly styrofoam texture. I'll have a nice smooth finish. So that's another positive thing. I was struggling a little bit because I'd made this really, really wet, and so I had to go like dry my hands, wash my hands, and now I can mess with this stuff again. It was just like getting stuck to my hands. I couldn't work with it, so just waited for this stuff to dry a little bit so I could make it workable again. All right, so the clay is now attached to the front of the face. So I'm gonna let it dry. I'm like still very unhappy with how the eyes are going, so I'm just gonna do some subtractive sculpting and just sand into it and shape it a little bit more and make it not look stupid. But ooh, let's not drop it either. Like the side profile is looking pretty good. I really like that. I really like the dimension there. And it doesn't look like me at all, I don't think, but that's okay. Not concerned about it. So yeah, next step is waiting for it to dry and then going back to sanding a little bit more. So it took a day and a half to dry, but this is sort of what the foam clay looks like after it's dried. You see that it expands a bit. So yeah, I really like it so far. I mean, I can work on something indefinitely till it looks perfect, and I'll probably work on it more just because I don't like some of these bumps here. This is the Dremel tool, and you just, you know, plug it in and you turn it on and it can sand in small areas. Really, really great, handy tool for sculpting, and it's got a ton of different bits. So this is sort of like a thicker sanding bit, and I don't have them on me right this second, but there's like thinner bits, metal bits, and all sorts of things. So yeah, here's an example of all the bits that are possible. Maybe not all, but a lot of them. After trying to Dremel in this foam, I really don't think it cuts the foam clay very well. So I gave it a shot, but I'm just not going to do that. And so I'm also testing another thing too over here. I'm testing to see if paper clay adheres to this, which I doubt it does, but I just wanted to see. And then so I've got this smooth finish foam coating, which is like a foam filler. So these areas with which I kind of messed up, I'm just gonna fill it with that foam filler. So just trying to get it to a place where I just feel okay with it. I like this stuff because like the foam clay leaves imperfections in the foam, and this is sort of like the last touch to make it real smooth. Okay, so I'm done with sculpting it. For now, just I mean, this is just a demo, so I won't keep going because I have other things to do. But I do want to do one more thing to it. I just want to paint maybe part of the face. I don't know which side yet, but I want to, since we're going to project onto it, I want to see if painting it does anything cool with the projection, or if maybe keeping it white would be the best way to go. So I decided, obviously, to paint it, and I got a little bit carried away with painting, but this is what it could potentially look like if you decide to paint over this foam clay here. And yeah, really brings the piece to life a little bit more. And I'm curious to see how the paint and color will interact with the projection mapping that we end up doing. So yeah, overall, we've got the head, we start out with like this styrofoam, and you can see this is still pretty rough over here. And then we're sculpting a little bit more of the face, more detail, and using some foam clay here. And then painting a little bit of painting on it if that's what you want to do, really pops it out. And there's some paper clay here just as for practice, but I don't really like that because it's heavy and hard and cracking. So I think sticking with the foam clay is the way to go. Foam on foam on foam. And you know, you don't have to paint it. I don't even know if it'll look good with the projection, but that's going to be my experiment.